Hi, I'm Mark Baird and this is Craig Winger, and we are going to talk about NRS data, specifically tables 4 and 4B, and those are the main performance tables in the NRS reports, and they're looking at students while they're in the program. If you're interested in follow-up outcomes, what's happening to students after they exit the program, you should check out the segment on Table 5, which happens to be new as of 12/13. There was a major change in Table 5, and you should check that out. But 4 and 4B talks about how students are doing in the program, and notice there are two tables, 4 and 4B. And through some very simple magic, Craig's going to tell you how to, from that, create a third table and get even more information out of it.
Thanks, Mark. The table 4 is a combination of two groups of people, and 4B, that table, is actually a subset of table 4. 4B is actually those people who were both pre-tested and post-tested. So we have good data on their gains, how they improved, and everything else like that. If you take and subtract table 4B from table 4, what you end up getting is a third table, which is really just those people who showed up and were in the program for at least 12 hours, were pre-tested, and were not post-tested. When you look at the groups of those who are pre-tested versus those people who are not pre-tested, you end up getting two very clear pictures about two very different sets of people, and they can be very enlightening to the quality, efficiency, and effectiveness of your program when you have those two views of how you're working with those two groups of people.
So table 4 then, that's all NRS eligible students, correct?
Yes, correct.
So, and then table 4B are students that are in 4, but those are only the students who've been pre and post tested. And NRS gives you that. That's nice. They give you 4 and 4B. What they don't give you are the students who had not been pre and post tested.
And so our work then is to teach you how to take 4, subtract what is in 4B from it, and you end up getting this new set of data, and it can basically look just like, in terms of columns and everything else, table 4 or 4B, but it'll be only composed of those students who were not post-tested. And when you look at them, you get a much different picture about the effectiveness and efficiency of the program, especially with regards to attrition rates, retention rates, and persistence. Those are very important 3 aspects of the quality and the efficiency and effectiveness of your program. How many people want to spend a lot of energy and a lot of money, actually, in teacher time on people who are leaving your program, or in some cases who are really smart and really determined and stay in it in terms of persistence and retention? Those two things really, in combination, really give you a different picture about how effective the program is. So I'd like to explain, much clearly define those 3 aspects of the table, all the tables, and then go into how to actually peel it apart. Because you need to understand what retention is in terms of the tables, what persistence is in terms of tables, and then the third is the attrition, which is really what we don't like the most.
So we're not talking about changing the structure of the tables. We're using the same columns and rows. It'll look the same. It'll look exactly the same in terms of the structure. Numbers of columns, numbers of rows, everything is the same, except you're just going to have different numbers in those cells, and those are going to represent, in this third table that we create, those are going to represent your students who had not been post-tested.
That's correct.
So in the end, you're going to have all NRS eligible students, those students who are post-tested, and those students who are not post-tested, and looking at the same and being able to compare on the same metrics across all 3.
Makes it, in some ways, it gives you a much more robust picture about how to work on your analytics. Those students who are post-tested and moved on and were successful, give you great rewards. You think you're doing great. But when you start peeling apart and really looking at the ones who were not successful and getting a better feel for what's going on there, you may end up wanting to put some more energy into that. Or you may recognize that you're putting too much energy into these people and you need to figure out how to either become more efficient and effective with them or change what you're doing. Go ahead.
So tell us about the measures.
Okay. Let's look at attrition rates for a minute. Attrition in NRS tables is indicated on column F, and it is, well, 5 columns over. But the idea is column F is those people who left the program for some reason. They didn't get enough hours, something happened to their lives, they just dropped out. Now, it is possible for them to have been in a place where they actually were post-tested, but they didn't finish anything that particular year. But the idea is identifying the percentage of people who actually compose that attrition rate gives you an idea of how much is left after everybody's gone, or after these people have left. When you look at retention rates, retention looks in column G in all of the tables, and column G is those people who stayed in the program even if they didn't make a completion. These people are tough. They're determined to make something. If you're really good and you want to look at their scale score gain, you can actually see in looking at the scores how many points they improve. It may not have been enough to jump to the next level, but they toughed it out and they're sticking with it. This is a good thing. You want those rates to be high. The third group we're looking at is persistence. Now, some people would question our looking at this, but column E is a group of people that have made a completion. We know that because they're in column D of all those people who made a completion. But column E are the people who actually show up in another higher level. In other words, they're also being retained in the program because they show up. However, of the people who made a completion, in many cases there are a group of people who don't come back after they make a completion. And what we're trying to show here is when you subtract column E from column D, you find out all these people out here who left the program. They did not re-enroll into the next higher level. That tells me that their persistence level was down. So you actually have two groups of people you're looking at here. Looking at people who are persistent, wonderful to have that. But you also have to, when you subtract one from the other, E from D, you find out the number of people who leave your program even after they've made a completion. They do not show back up and re-enroll. That gives you a different flavor about the quality and the motivation that's being, or the value, so to speak, of the program and how it's working. Those are where we are in these three things. We really want people to look at these because they give you a different sense of the quality of your program. If by chance you have a high retention rate, you have to be saluting the teachers, because most of the time those people are the ones who have the direct impact on the value that the students play and the motivation for returning. If you have a high persistence rate, in other words, fewer people come into the program, then you have to look at, say, okay, what are we doing wrong if it's a low rate, your persistence rate is low, or what do you do if your persistence rate is high? How do you reward your teachers? Those are the kinds of things we want people to start really, really honing in on in terms of improving your program. This is all about continuous improvements. It's all about getting things better, and that's what we are. Mark?
So this is great. This is a way that you can use the data that you have available to you. Some people express frustration with accountability reporting with NRS. and I unfortunately see it as simply a bureaucratic exercise. But there really is valuable data to be mined from these reports, and then if you just start pulling it apart, like as Craig indicated, you can get even more out of it. And I think this is, we really want to encourage you to get a hold of your data and look at it, and as Craig always says, to muck around in it, play with it, and make use of it. Because the federal government has set up these measures all across the country. Every state that's getting the adult ed grant dollars is reporting into the system. And so they're all seeing the same thing, and they wanted to set this up so that it was going to really measure student performance and outcomes. So it's not perfect, but don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Use it.
Excellent. I'm a firm supporter in figuring out ways to make data, even data that some people may perceive as unnecessary or whatever, to use it somehow, to find a way to use it, and use it well and constructively, because there is really good information in these two tables and our third concocted table, so to speak, that really would paint a different picture about the strength of the different function levels and the different program areas that you have in your institution. All right. So great. Thank you for watching, and if you have any more questions, you can contact the Division of Career and Adult Education, and we've provided the information to you here, and staff would be happy to help you. Great. Thank you.